At Amazon, we like to write a lot. Maybe you're familiar with this culture of not using PowerPoints that much. This is a completely different, this is outside facing. Internally, we often think of not using PowerPoints, but instead writing a lot. And that, writing a lot, plus having a very standardized way of reporting, implementing, and creating key results, objectives, etc., is the way that we internally keep going and going, even though the number of people that it's working at Amazon keeps growing. And we have our star mechanism for that, which is working backwards. As you may recall, the main example of it is considering the customer always at the center of it, and we use this to get clarity. We not use this for documentation of the things that we already decided. This is for uncertain times internally that we say, okay, do we know what the client needs? Do we know what the client will need? Do we know what to invent on behalf of them? No? Okay, let's start thinking in the customer, and then with 3 different documents, start envisioning the future on behalf of it. Those 3 documents: press release, the frequently asked questions, and the visuals. Why? Because even before we start doing the first effort to create something, we must create the possibility of this being a real product and create a simulation of a press release. So let's say that you are launching a new device. You are part of the Alexa team and you are launching a new device. That device, the secret device, will delight millions of customers. Okay, before even making any simulation of it, writing the first line of code, let's start thinking about, in 3 years, we are launching it, okay? How the client, how the people, and more specifically, how the press and media will receive it. How will they react? So we start like basically putting our minds on a higher level, let's say. And we start creating this thing that we don't even have any idea how it looks like, but we want to connect with this concept of how this will solve the future client needs. And then we start creating ourselves the set of frequently asked questions that our client might ask us in that future. And then we start creating the visuals for it. So, as always, at Amazon, the customer goes at the center of it. We need to be very specific about the context and needs, because everything is in the details. How we create this concept of personas internally is very meticulous, in order that if we have the full understanding in that client, we try to avoid generalities, because in that way you cannot innovate quite well and you cannot understand quite intentional the things that your client might need. So as a context, 90% of the things that we have created are coming from direct feedback throughout the decades that Amazon has been active. And 10% has been things that some people say from scratch, we have created because we have enough information to say the client must need this. The client is willing to pay for this, but they are not telling us. So remember the things that I said, that in some cases, the client is not telling us this, and we need to create better ways and efficient processes and mechanisms to get that information. Sometimes it's just only by observation, to be carefully patient and active listener for your customers. So in essence, this is how the working backwards looks like. Writing. Yes. A press release with the common standards and the highest standards of a press release of any product, the frequently asked questions, and the visuals in order to communicate between each other. How does it look like? like this, messy. Why? We are very strict even with grammar, even with punctuation, because we want to clarify as much as possible internally in order to have like the full perspective of what we want to achieve. And it's an ever-changing document. It's a living document. Everyone is writing on top of it. It's like crossing stuff, adding stuff. This is how a meeting at Amazon looks like. And it's the perfect chaos. We often tend to have like the physical documents in order to have like this sense of writing on top of it. And it's magical. Some cases you tend to think, okay, let's have like a discussion with ideas. But in this, you just only go straight to the point. You go straight to the topic, to the paragraph, to the sentence. And that's a complete different mindset in order to think about how do you share ideas. Now, the third paragraph, architecture. Let's go back again with Amazon Web Services and Amazon.com. Mentally, you are at Amazon.com shopping cart, right? Once you go there, every button, every line, every announcement, every pop-up, there was a time that all of this was all together putting into a concept that we call a monolith. Technically, a monolith is basically full lines of code inserted into one big piece of program. But what happens if we want to change something out of it? Maybe, by mistake, we are eliminating a very important part of other thing that is very crucial. Let's say you are part of the team that it's in charge of taxation, and you need to create a way to calculate the taxes efficiently once the client goes and click on buy, according to the country, to the state, etc. So we had this problem, and we said, okay, let's think differently. Why not we create a decoupled architecture for single-purpose services? So in the opposite line of a monolith, basically we have separated and isolated teams that are in charge of, I don't know, the pictures of the product. Another team, completely independent, is in charge of the description. Another one for the pop-ups, another one for taxes, another one for payment solutions, etc. So in that way, if each one of them wants to change the color, wants to change the layout, wants to change something, they are not affecting the other ones. So that was a huge change that probably you as a customer, you didn't see it because you didn't need it. It was enhancing your experience by having a faster and a more reliable website, and that's it. More products, more information, customer feedback, which will enhance your purchasing experience, and that's it. For us, a complete new perspective of how to create the technology to do it so. The result? Right now, for every builder that is using Amazon Web Services, we have this set of different microservices in a way that, okay, if they are willing to do better at customer engagement, or they want to try new database services, or they want to integrate media services, or even if they want to create some analytics dashboards, they can do it without hurting the end result of their products and services. And we accelerate the pace of innovation with our technical architecture. This is like the cornerstone, because essentially it's lines of code put into you to have a better experience at buying products. And again, 3 pillars, because we always allow people to do instant experimentation internally and externally. We also lower the cost of failure, and we enable rapid scale and iteration. So basically, things that are going to be constant in the future, we also consider it even to build the infrastructure for Amazon.com. And we also do it for the rest of aspects at Amazon. For instance, we sell more than 4,000 products per minute, so we need to have like the agility in order to create very convenient changes to enhance your customer experience in order to not to hurt this in particularly critical moments such as today, Prime Day and Prime sales. In order to provide you with the services, which as of now it's almost 1.6 million packages per day, we are innovating on behalf of you by creating this as a complete new perspective of robotic logistic warehouses that maybe you have seen in some videos, and it's not affecting the final experience for you until you get the product faster, until you get the product without the ease of saying, this is not what I ordered. So basically, very tiny tweaks, but the essentials of the foundations to do it so is part of the innovation too. Interactions with Alexa. Alexa is part of millions of households. And skipping the line, it's also a good example. So we need to take care, not just only in the final outcome, but in the whole process to put this all together for our customers. Are we good? Comments, questions? Perfect. Our current CEO, Andy Jassy, says, we like to say that there is no compression algorithm for experience. And this is also intentional, and this is also bold. Because for those things that you have seen as examples, we are offering those products and services worldwide to millions, to tens of millions, even 200 million customers, some of them. So yes, we have had some failures from it, but we're embracing it, and we know for sure that in order to achieve scalability, we must pass through those processes. And that comes to the final part of the presentation. How do we organize to do it so? Amazon hires builders. So the builder mentality, how do you create a group of talented people? Let them build. Plain simple. Sounds almost logical, right? But in an organization of 1.5 million people, how do you let builders build? We have a concept, and I love this, not because of the food or because these look delicious, but because it envisions how a big company such as Amazon has a startup mentality. How so? Every team, every functional team at Amazon, in order to keep going, must be with the right size of at least having the people that will get fed from a 2 pizza. That's it. So if you're working in a team and you say, okay, are we good if we order 2 pizzas and everyone can eat like quite decent? No, it's bigger. We must split that team in order to maybe work asynchronously or work in parallel, because this is a lot of people in order to make decisions. This is a lot of people in order to maybe have the right way to solve our customers' needs. And that's magical, because basically we are a big organization composed of tiny startup mindset groups and decision makers. How? We make those teams small, decentralized, and nimble, and we let them own and run what they build. That's why you see tons of experimentation on the customer side from Amazon. Do you say sometimes how fast can they do stuff? Basically, thanks to this mechanism, quite efficient. But also, bear in mind that some people say, okay, this is the happy side, this is the fun side, but what about the failure side? Yes, we also consider it. Jeff Bezos, in a letter to shareholders in 2015, said, to invent, you have to experiment. If you know in advance that it's going to work, this is not an experiment. So basically, you need to be ready, you need to create the processes in order to say, what if we fail? And try to think this as a possibility. Sometimes we think, okay, I cannot fail. And yes, that's good in order to motivate yourself, your teams, etc. But what if so? What are the possibilities? Maybe higher than you think. So, Amazon failures. My most interesting part of the presentation. Yes, we have failed, and we have failed massively. First one, actually this is two fails combined into one. We said back in the early days of e-commerce, we have good knowledge about selling online. Why don't we create something called auctions? Sounds logical, right? By that time, our biggest competitor was doing something similar, and we said, okay, we can do it better because this is something that our customer needs. And we launched it in 1999, and it was a big failure. People were like, okay, you're spending so much money and people is not like engaged to that. Okay, a few years later, we said, what if we create something that allows people not to do auctions, but to create their own websites internally at Amazon? Good idea, terrible results. So we created C-shops, and it was a complete mess. But we encourage people to say, okay, what else we can do? We have the knowledge of maybe auctions is a good way, but it's not the best. Maybe creating your own website at Amazon is a good way, but it's not the best. Boom. That ended up in our main program right now for third-party sellers, which is Amazon Marketplace and Amazon Fulfillment by Amazon, Amazon Fulfillment Center, etc. So you, as an individual seller, if you have, let's say, I don't know, soap or clothes that you are launching, you can connect with Amazon through Marketplace, and right now it's almost 20% of the whole gross Amazon profits for Amazon.com. So that's a way to see failures. What happened if that team that created auctions was kicked out of Amazon? People will say, you guys are not embracing failure, and we did it. Another example, infamously known. Who here had a Fire phone? Nobody, right? It was kind of logical. People needed more ways to communicate. That was the boom of smartphones. But, I mean, we also had some track record by that time creating hardware. So it made perfect sense, and the customer needed it. But eventually, it didn't work out. However, the result of it was, of course, hundreds of millions of dollars in loss for us, but the technology behind Amazon Fire Phone was the cornerstone of a new devices called Alexa. And they are innovating quite well. So, as a conclusion, this is the way that Amazon innovates. We start with the culture, we go with the mechanisms in order to ensure that in the future, not just only for the current problems for us and our customers, but for the future ones, we create the architecture to keep going that machine, and we also have the organization mentality to do it so. I hope you have learned some interesting facts, some interesting concepts, and in a way that we consider highly valuable the feedback. I want to ask you for a couple of minutes while we are doing a Q&A, a really quick Q&A. Please give us feedback about this topic. My name is Alex Santana, and I'm thankful for your time and your patience today. And hopefully, let's keep innovating to have a better world. Thanks. Now, we have -5 minutes. Quick comments, questions, impressions? Go ahead.
Wait a second, sorry, for the recording. Yeah.
You said to innovate, you guys do a lot of writing. Were you referring to the press releases, the FAQs, that kind of thing? Like, what is the process like of the system for all this writing that you guys do?
Yeah, so basically the first 3 months at Amazon, you are not doing anything related to your work. You are like having more trainings about how to write and how to communicate your ideas and how to get the right data in order to have meaningful conversations internally. So basically, you need to have a cool baseline in order to start like working on it. And for us, writing, maybe you are familiar with it. How many of you are like writing more than 10 pages per week? Almost nobody. But because we love to communicate through words, we love to communicate through drawings. So in order to avoid not meaningful confrontations, at Amazon we said everyone must share their ideas, their knowledge through a document. And the baselines of writing well a document are X, Y, and Z. So basically that's the way that we try to think about sharing stuff.
Where do they send that doc? Like, how does that work? What's the process here? So I got something to say.
Yeah, so
I
basically,
write it down. Where do I send it?
exactly. So let's say you need to communicate something that you have seen. There is a very specific and detailed way of having like the sentence structure, the data, the acronyms, etc. And actually there are like some frameworks about you need to do it in a one-pager. If you are communicating something that is highly relevant to the customer, you just only have 3 pages. If it's something that is going to change the concept of a new product, a new feature, you just only have 6 pages. So go on Google, 1-pager Amazon, 3-pager Amazon, 6-pager Amazon. Everyone has like their own standards, and it's basically the way that, let's say, the guy who created Alexa did it first, the presentation in a 1-pager. Later on, once he did the frequent asked questions, the press release, people said, okay, go, move forward, you have the budget. He did a 6-pager. So everything internally, even the born of Amazon Web Services is from a 6-pager document. The early beginnings of any project, even the purchase of Whole Foods, was a 6-pager. So structured and like comprehensive ways to have like the same understanding.
But like, where do you send that? Like, is that like, am I emailing Jeff? Or where I said, okay, I got a 1-pager, I want to send it. Where does the people at Amazon, like, where does that live? Like, what's the process saying, like, oh, I have this idea? Or does it go to your department head? Where does it go?
We have a beautiful mechanism for that, which is escalations. So basically, everybody will be ashamed of what they are writing, because it will go up and up and up, and by chance, the early beginnings is that you start writing, okay, I have seen this, I have these ideas, and okay, cool. Let me have that, and I'm going to communicate this to my upper reports. And they will see that and say, no, that's not good enough, and you're going to be yelled at it. And people are like, okay, damn, what did I do wrong? And then you start like having like this standard of how to communicate stuff. Because there are people that have like 20 years at Amazon, 25 years, that are like very top specialists at it. And you need to have like this concept of they eventually, if you want to have successful at presenting your ideas, they will read that. And they will let you know, hey, you are a terrible writer, maybe you have a good idea, but this is not good enough, and they will force you to do a public like facing of this guy is not writing well. So basically that's our internal mechanism in order to enhance the level and the quality of the things that we are sharing. It's not about who raises a higher voice, who has like a strong point of view during a meeting. It's like, hey, you need to transmit this as in every part of the world through a document. And it's a standardized document, and that's it. So you have to be expert somehow and eventually at writing those stuff at Amazon. So beautiful cows, in essence. Anyone else? Cool, awesome. Thank you again, and see you around.